Welcome to the coffee show. I'm your host, Kirk Pearson, episode 3 of our World of Coffee Jakarta specials. Got some homegrown talent here for the first edition of the At the Show podcast series. None other than Indonesian Barista Champion of 2013, Forbes 40 under 40 listee in Indonesia, Yoshua Tanu.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Welcome to the coffee show.
No.
Jakarta is buzzing right now.
Yeah.
Jakarta is absolutely flying. Must be good for you to see.
Dude, it's the World of Coffee event brings such a different vibe, right? Everybody's super lively, everybody's super fired up. You know, this is the type of vibe that we want to see in Jakarta, and we want the world to be able to see as well, right? So I think I know most people haven't been to Indonesia, and especially in Jakarta, and I think this is a chance for us to really show that, you know, how advanced we've become in terms of the specialty coffee scene.
Jakarta is a wild place, and we'll get into more of that later, but like just a totally wild place for someone like me. I've never been somewhere so densely populated, I don't think, but it's been truly incredible to see. And the coffee scene here is vibrant. It's very, very vibrant. There's lots of coffee shops, lots of people who enjoy their coffee. Cafe culture seems like it's a big part of the city.
Yeah, it's huge. I think you know, a lot of it stems from barista competitions in general. Indonesia's still, you know, back then, 2000, when we started was about 15 years ago, 2010. There was only maybe 2 main players in specialty coffee, Anomaly and Caswell's. That's it. Caswell's got bought out, so it's Anomaly left. And the rest of it was, you know, Gloria Jeans, which is from Australia. I don't even know if it exists now or not. But
it's been rebranded, but yeah.
It's been rebranded. Starbucks Coffee Bean. That was about it. Right, and maybe one local chain. So the scene changed a lot in the past, I would say 10 years, starting 2015, 16, when social media started to become a little bit bigger, which means that people are understanding culture from other countries a lot easier, right? And so understanding culture, seeing the behavior outside, allows them to want to learn more and bring that culture back. Right? Before that, it was just basically whoever went abroad for school or for work, bring back that culture. So trends used to be maybe about 5 years late coming to Indonesia from other countries. Ever since social media, it's been less than a year, right?
Social media has been a game changer for this city. I think every cafe I've been to, everyone's just, I mean, it's the same everywhere now, but it feels like it's particularly fertile in Jakarta. You've made your name in specialty, among other things, but I think I'm really fascinated by what you're doing right now. And so you're one of the founders of a startup called Jago Coffee.
Yeah.
And Jago Coffee, to me, if I was to give it a bit of my own elevator pitch, it's kind of like democratizing coffee for people in Jakarta. Obviously, there's a big wealth gap for a lot of people in Jakarta between the rich and the poor sort of thing. So to what you've done has actually made coffee far more accessible to far more people. Could you explain to us what Jago Coffee is?
So basically, Jago Coffee is a series of mobile fleets of cafe that which for us is to build an easier access of affordable, good quality coffee to the mass market, right? The idea stemmed from, you know, Indonesia is one of the largest producing countries in the world, the 4th largest producing country for coffee. But if you go to the coffee shops in Jakarta, you know, coffees are still at about $2 average. If you buy it at the farm, it's probably at about 20, 30 cents. Why is there such a stark difference between getting a coffee at the farm and having that delivered and transported to Jakarta? It suddenly becomes, you know, $2, at least, you know, 10 times more, right? Yeah.
So is it, obviously it's a lot cheaper to source coffee from Indonesia rather than have it freighted here from Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, etc.?
Not necessarily, but for the most part, yes, right? For the most part, if you have access, if you build relationships that, you know, that we've had in the specialty coffee scene for a long time to the farm side, we can get those prices that are pretty low, right? So in terms of understanding that there are coffee prices that are more affordable, it's there. It's not like a legend or anything like that. So the whole idea is how do we then showcase and bring that to the market itself without any additional high cost.
It's an interesting sort of contrast to draw because obviously you've been in the specialty industry for quite some time. So you're one of the founders of Common Grounds as well here. And sort of licensee for Saint Ali in Bali and Indonesia. So how was it for you going into a completely different sort of section of the industry? Because coffee's kind of it's an interesting industry in that it's kind of got different, I guess, sections of it. It's
Yeah.
not just commercial and specialty. I feel like there's what you're doing is like super ultra convenient
Yeah.
and super ultra accessible. So, I mean, let's call it that category for today. But what was it like for you to see an opportunity in what you're currently doing now?
So, specialty coffee, I've been in it for the past 15 years. And unfortunately, the market segment that we gear towards is more of the middle, upper class, right? So it's great that, we were able to be here the first time to educate the higher upper market on specialty coffee and good quality coffee in general. But over time, doing that for about 10 years, the market doesn't seem to change. It doesn't seem that I'm educating the market in a fast way for the rest of the customer segment. And I mean, the whole idea of, us being a barista and being in that community is to educate the market on specialty coffee or good coffee in general, right? But reaching to the middle to low class seemed a little bit more impossible because they just can't access coffees at our cafes. It's too expensive. So that was a bit of an issue for me in a sense where, hey, there must be a better way for us to be able to introduce good, fresh coffee for everybody else, right? And the idea stemmed from that, right? And from there, we figured out, okay, what's the best way to push that? The biggest issue that we saw in coffee prices being so high for the general market to buy is this in a general sense, it's the access to the retail, right? One of the biggest costs could be in terms of logistics, transports. Another biggest cost could be in terms of the manufacturing or roasting of the coffee itself. But the biggest factor comes from actually distributing the coffee, which in our case is coffee shops. Coffee shops have a high overhead cost in a general sense, right? Your rental costs a lot higher, your labor costs a lot higher, utilities cost is high, but the cost of coffee actually does not change from that much. It's marginal from farm to the store, right? So we thought, okay, if that's the case, shouldn't more people be able to buy it, even though it is more expensive? But if you look at Indonesia and you go around and walk around for maybe 20 minutes in a city, the biggest form of retail is not actually store-based coffee shops, right? The biggest form of retail is side street vendorships.
Is
right?
what, sorry?
Side street vendors.
Okay.
Yeah, so retail coffee shops in Indonesia, maybe maximum 20,000 shops. Jakarta, maximum about 7,000 to 8,000 shops, coffee shops. For actual retail, for restaurants, etc., maybe we do 5 times more, which is about 50,000 to 80,000 in terms of actual shops across the nation. Side street vendors, there's roughly about 10 to 15 million across the nation.
Wow.
Right? So when you look at it, there must be something that they're doing right that can scale to that much, even though it's not organized scaling or structured scaling. But in terms of the availability, if it's that wide, that means there's a lot of customers looking for it, right? And so when you dive deeper into why that's happening, it's because these guys are able to run a business that can sell a product at a price point not that far off from the cost of goods, right? It's because the shops that they're running are, they're running it themselves, which means there's not a lot of labor costs additional. The locations are super tiny, or sometimes they do move from one location to another. So in terms of rental costs, either zero or super minimal, right? They don't have utilities costs. Everything is gas though. There's no electricity, right? So in terms of your logistics costs or infrastructure costs, is not high, which means that they can afford to reduce the price points while still keeping the margin just enough for them to survive or live on, right? So if, for instance, fried rice, right? So you can buy fried rice in a nice restaurant in Indonesia for maybe about $7, $8, right? Or you can buy fried rice in a side street vendor for about $1. And if you look at the actual difference between the two fried rices, it's super marginal. The rice is, maybe one uses Indonesian rice, one uses Japanese rice, marginal. The egg prices are all similar. There's no change between a big chain and a small market player. Vegetables, same, right? Oil, sauces, maybe marginal as well. The only difference maybe the big chains will give you a big piece of chicken versus the side street one where they don't have chicken. But you're getting still fresh product. You're getting fresh fried rice. They're cooking it for you on the spot. The taste probably similar, right? But what you're not getting is the experience, the ambiance, the nice store or the community that you're in the nice shops, right? But actually, in terms of the cost of the goods and the price of the goods, shouldn't be that expensive. So we applied the similar idea in that, hey, maybe with coffee it's the same. Maybe we can democratize and bring, the same quality of coffee that's fairly good that for people to be educated on, but at a much lower price point based off of the same model, right?
And so I want to outline to people how your business kind of operates now. And so my understanding is that you're a startup, so you got funding to do it, and we'll go through a bit of that side of stuff later. But so basically, you set up centralized distribution centers that basically your operators, your franchise partners, is that what you call them?
Partners.
Yeah, your partners can go and replenish their stock, sort of thing, during the day, and then go out to a location where they can detect on an app where customers will be, and go and set up shop there and sell their goods. And we actually interacted with one the other day. So thankfully, you sent a driver, one of your partners, out to us, to our hotel, and he was making transactions with us. So, and we saw him interact with customers, and we bought some of the coffees ourselves, and they were very good. The quality was excellent for what it is. And it's like, there's a little bit of sugar and stuff in some of them, but they were delightful. I think people in Australia would also love to drink them as well. So it's a really, really interesting model. So you pick up from the distribution center, ride out on the bike, and it kind of needs to be a bike because the traffic in Jakarta is horrendous. And then you can just set up anywhere and just start trading.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So think of it as like a central kitchen with a fleet of carts. We distribute it to a certain area radius that's super dense. So we try to build a density of a customer to a cart at always between 75 meters to 100 meters at distance at all times, which means if you live or work inside our operating area, you'll see the carts at least once or twice a day. Right. So this creates two main factors. One is convenience for the access of coffee. Means if you go out of your house, you want to go to the train station, you'll pass by one of our carts for sure.
Yeah.
Or if you don't pass by one of the carts, you can order it through the app and they'll come to you. Right. But the other thing that it attracts is actually the brand awareness and top of mind. Right. We grew our customer base very organically just because they see the cart so often that it becomes top of mind. And what we notice is every time a customer sees a cart 3 times, they would at least approach it. If they approach it at least twice, they would have purchased a product.
How do you get that data?
We do surveys. So we do surveys. We have data on our app as well in terms of the transactions, in terms of cart density to cart density to population density. Yeah,
It's such a fascinating thing, and we've been here for just over a week now.
Yeah.
And I reckon I see 5 or 6 a day.
Yeah.
So we get out of the hotel. Hey, look, there's one of Joshua's carts. We go to a coffee shop, walk out the front. Hey, look, one of Joshua's carts. Walk to the shopping mall. Look, one of Joshua's carts.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. You've done terrifically well with it. Yeah. And I've noticed there's actually there's been a few other brands that have popped up doing the exact same thing not long after you've done. So how long ago did you start?
We started a long time. We started about 4 years ago during COVID.
Okay.
So right before COVID. But we only really got product market fit 2 years after. So about 2022 was when everything started to rocket ship. One of the main reasons, obviously, is COVID is one. The second main reason, I feel it's timing plays a big part. Meaning back in 2018 was the big boom of coffee chains in Indonesia. So this is the growth of like hundreds and thousands of coffee shops within like a 1 or 2 year time span. And a lot of this time, there was a big PR war going for most of these coffee shops. So customers would buy coffee from these coffee shops based off of the brand that they're being proud of, right? So everything was about the brand mind. Over time, obviously, for after COVID, this is 2018, so post-COVID, 2022, 4 or 5 years later, as we know coffee, if in the beginning it's because of passion or brand or just word of mouth, if you have drunk coffee for a period of time consistently, it becomes your mindset doesn't become brand minded anymore. It becomes more behavioral. Behavioral mindset equates to more value driven mindset, right? Which means that you're already at the point where you need coffee that day, that morning. You just want to find the best value, whether it's the closest to you in terms of convenience, whether it's the most affordable for you for the price or for the quality of the coffee, or whether it's just easy, right? So in 2022, people were already becoming accustomed to the behavior of drinking coffee, and just talking about the mass market, right? And so we capitalized on this change of behavior to customers, and that we're showcasing, hey, our coffees are similar quality to regular coffee shop. We use fresh coffee. We use milk, real milk. We use real ingredients, just like a cafe would. And the price point is a third of the price, right? You'll get the same quality product at $1.50, $1.80. We're pricing ourselves at 50 to 60 cents, right? And so it gave a different mindset shift to the customers of thinking, hey, maybe it's just much better to buy from Jago versus a coffee shop. The second form is the disruption that we built is towards communities who were originally drinking mostly instant coffees, right? So in terms of the price point of volume, it's actually the same for Jago Coffee and instant coffee, but you're getting much better quality fresh product versus instant. So
you're able to do that because of scale, sort of thing, or?
No, it's just again distribution, right? I mean, just based on the economics of coffee, it's already pretty healthy enough that you can. But
This is an interesting discussion that we're sort of delving into, because I'm very on the record as saying that coffee prices in general should be higher.
Yeah.
So people listening to this probably thinking, Kirk, you hypocrite. And now let me explain, because I don't think, obviously what you do with Jago is not considered specialty.
yeah,
So, but I don't think every coffee needs to be X amount. Like, to be honest, that if we bind ourselves to that, doesn't really help us as an industry, because what you do sort of satisfies the supply chain of coffee, but also, the end consumer as well. So you're using coffee that's there, readily available, produced en masse, and no one's really losing out of the transaction.
Yeah.
And so, and it kind of goes to the point where, like, specialty coffee is the bubble that I live in, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't need to be for everyone. Like, for us to dictate everyone needs to be drinking a good coffee, or you're a bad person or immoral, doesn't really fly with me. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree, man. I think different needs for everybody, and luckily enough, there's different tiers for that needs in coffee, right? And for us, the need that we're serving are people who just want to have that caffeine fix throughout the day, right? Yeah.
I want to ask you about the startup side of things. How does this work? Because I'm very interested in the startup world.
Yeah.
I'm starting to follow AI a little bit and notice some of the startups in and around that. So you come up with the concept. Was it your idea?
Yeah.
So you come up with the concept, and then you go to pitch it to investors. So some people with venture capital or whatever. Is
Yeah.
that how it sort of worked for you?
It is. It is, but venture capital is not for every business, right? It's not like you have an idea of business and you should just go to the venture capital and raise funds, right? It depends on the business model. Like for us, the only reason why, I have two businesses. One is Common Grounds and one is Jago Coffee. With Common Grounds, we don't do that, right? Because we want to grow the business organically. We know we have good margins and there's no need for super high speed scalability, right? Versus Jago, where we know it's such a high density model that requires us to get to a certain point of scalability for us to be able to grow organically at the speed that we want. And for us to get there fast, we probably need external funding, which is the easiest form of deployment is VC money, right? So it's true where basically if your business fits into that mold, then what you do is you do create the business first. You can create it as an idea and sell and pitch that idea to get initial funding. But obviously, if you do that, then they'll probably eat up a lot more of your shares than you would want to. Or you can what we call bootstrap. So using your own funds to start the business first, have that run until you get pretty good traction. Then for you to be able to speed up your traction is where you get external funding from venture capitals. that's probably a much better way if you can be bootstrap, because then you don't have to give up as much shares to the investors, right? Yeah.
So if there's anyone listening or watching this that wants to do a startup of their own, irrespective of whether it's in coffee or not, what's your advice to them? And I'm listening with keen ears here in case I ever need to.
I think if go with try to understand how you feel about the business. Try to understand yourself a little bit more in terms of how you think and feel, and work on entrepreneurship, right? Because obviously getting external funds, it's not just as simple as oh, I'm getting a lot of money and it's fun times to grow, right? There's obviously a lot of responsibility, a lot of consequences involved in it with it as well. And depending on how you should, my advice is to stress test yourself. And if you have high stress counter agents in your body and mind, you can probably go through the venture capital model to grow your business a lot faster, right? If you don't, try to bootstrap the whole way. Try to organically grow. For me, my advice is to organically grow all the time, if it's as much as possible, just because you can grow at your own pace. You can grow at your own comfortability. But obviously, if you're highly productive, you're very goal oriented, and you have some type of final value that you look for at the end of the day, then go with what's the fastest way. Yeah.
Do you plan to expand outside of Indonesia? Because it seems to me like this is a model that could fit in so many densely populated Asian cities. Like, have you expanded yet outside of Indonesia, or do you plan to?
No, honestly, we're only in about 30% of Jakarta right now. So it's still super tiny. I think biggest focus is to expand across the nation first, because in Indonesia, it's an archipelago, so we're a bunch of different islands. So even going to different islands, like going to a different country. Obviously, in the future, we do think about wanting to expand to a lot of different countries, but expanding to a different country takes a lot of investment, both in time and also in money, right? So until we can sustainably create a healthy margin for us to set some of those things aside to be able to expand comfortably, then I'll probably stick to the core fundamental country that I'm in for now.
It's interesting because I was talking to someone who does a bit of fund management the other day. So they work with something like $14 billion worth of funds.
Yeah.
And they were speaking about how they invest in Indonesia pretty regularly because it's a high consumption country. Obviously, 280 million people in this country, 28 million belonging to Jakarta alone.
Yeah.
So it kind of seems like you're onto something there. So even though you're working with, low value products by measure of the transaction, the scalability and the regular consumption is quite high. Any fairness to that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Indonesia is highly consumptive, but you have to, if you don't want to invest in Indonesia, you have to understand the the customer segments, and you have to understand which part of the market you want to penetrate, because each tier probably has a different business line or industry that can dominate in those
How
tiers, right?
many cups a day do you make with Jago now?
We serve roughly 3.5 million cups a month now.
A month?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
3.5 million.
Yeah,
My
something
goodness.
like that.
That sounds like mind-boggling. And so, I don't know if we're going to have the time, but I'd really love to see one of the distribution centers, how they operate. Because Fauzan, was that his name? Fauzan, the other day, the operator that came to see us, he was so professional, and he was only 18.
Yeah.
And he is basically an entrepreneur with goals of his own right now. Yeah. And he carried himself really well. And I asked him, what do you want to do, 5 years from now? And he said he wants to be a trainer at Jago. So I told him, Joshua, I'm going to go into bat for him. I'm going to give him the best referral. So if you want to give him a crack, go and get to know Fauzan. He wants to be one of the trainers. He's a company man. He wants to grow in the company of Jago. You got to give him a go.
That's awesome.
English was good as well. Like I was very impressed by him, actually.
Okay.
So
he was referred to One of our we have a Jaguar Excellence team, which is mainly like the leaders of the region. So if he was referred to, then they probably already are
Sam-
starting to see him as a
Sam,
as
onto
a
something.
mentee. Yeah.
You gotta get him here. You got to get him here at the show. I'm just saying, we'd love it. But no, he was, and we did some content so that anyone listening to this podcast will be able to see on our Instagram soon.
That's awesome.
How the Jago system operates. So I was very impressed.
That's cool.
What else would you like to talk about? Is there anything that we haven't spoken about with respect to Jago, or anything that you'd like the listeners to know about?
Man, I don't know. I think when you think about, we've covered Jago, we've covered funding. I think, going back to when you think about Jago, it's not just. I wanted to emphasize not just distribution of coffee to the mass market, right? But like you brought up, it's about creating a new culture of I wouldn't say baristas, but new age service industry workers, right? Where for us, we created this. We can't create this just for the customer side alone. We have to create this for the supply side, which is the Jaguar. We call it the Jaguans, right? The Jaguan side. And our platform is a way to be able to connect these two together as quickly as possible, right? But the main point is we have to make both of these guys win. Customers are already winning because they're getting much better coffee at an affordable price point in terms of access. So the way we have to make the Jaguans win is to, one of the biggest emphasis on the company is how do we build this tech ecosystem? People don't see us as a tech company because it's so offline. You see it in the streets, it's coffee. But, when you think about our type of model, which is, at the end of the day, thousands and thousands of carts of individual guys running around with this EV vehicle, for us to be able to scale from 0 to 100, from 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 100,000, if you don't have any tech ecosystem in place, one, that will not work, right? You'll have a lot of fraud, a lot of wastage, leakages, anything can happen in the cart level. But at the same time, the most important thing is how do you then create this? Let's put a positive word to a pyramid scheme, but to building a pyramid scheme for culture that as you grow your Jaguans, everybody has the same mindset or demeanor as Fauzan, right? So a lot of this has to do with the age range that we take in and we onboard as a Jaguan. Middle age is usually around 22 for our Jaguans. Median age, our max age is 28. Our youngest is 18. The reason why we go so low in terms of the age range, one is because most Indonesians don't really go to college. After high school, they start to find a job as a blue collar worker, and so we want our hubs, which consists of maybe about 100 to 150 Jaguans, to be like their college, right? To have everybody in the same age range where they can build a community on their own. They can, have fun. They can.
We're getting trolled here by one of your colleagues as well. Hey, you're on the podcast tomorrow. Don't forget. Yeah. I think it's 2:30, but check your messages. I've booked you in.
Yeah, that they can enjoy not just the work itself, but have that lifestyle, right, for their peers, right? So that builds a strong sense of community for that one depot. The second is also building, for these young guys, they're also more tech savvy. So whatever we push out in the future to help them sell. So right now, one of the main features that we have is we're able to create data-driven hotspot locations at every minute of the day. So they can just open their app to see at this minute where are existing hotspots or existing behavior or purchases beforehand. And they can just go to that location and they'll most likely find a customer there, right? So these tools help them to improve their sales, which helps us to improve our revenues, right? And so for them being young enough, they can adapt to the technology that we provide quite easily. And the third part is we create their earnings are not just from sales-driven products. Their earnings are also coming from disciplined culture, where they have to come in on time. They have to come in. Their attendance rate have to be pretty high. Their feedback from customers have to be pretty good in terms of ratings. And if they achieve all these things, they can go up rank. So there's 3 ranks in the Jaguan case: Jaguan Regular, Jaguan Star, and Jaguan Master. The higher the rank, the more revenue sharing that they're earning from the cups. But this discipline that we're creating from zero to build a culture allows us to, if we can do great culture for the first 1,000 Jaguans, then I think for the next 10,000, which is 10 below them, should have a similar energy, right? So if you can do that for 10,000 Jaguans, we can do it for 100,000 Jaguans, right? And this creates a set of cultured organization that's harder to disrupt later on if somebody does want to come.
How many Jaguars do you have right now?
We have roughly about 1,500 Jaguars.
Okay.
Right now. Yeah.
All right. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, well, two things I want to bring up before we wrap up. The sick jacket that Farzan had on.
I gotta get you
and
one,
I've requested a jacket. I cannot leave Indonesia until I get one. They look good. So the branding, the style is on point. The other cool thing about it is this dude whipped out a V60 on the side of a road.
Yeah.
I asked for an iced Americano and he made it for me. Just whips out a V60 while like thousands of cars are going past per minute. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I like that part of it. That was a nice touch.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Could have just made cold brew, but no, you've got the V60.
Yeah.
That was very, very
Was
nice.
it pretty good though, the V60?
It was good.
Yeah?
Yeah. I got to say, all of it was very good. I enjoyed all of it. Like my metric of coffee now is it drinkable?
Yeah.
My standards are probably lowered as I've gotten older. Like I'm starting to, appreciate hospitality and other things like that more, but it was all very drinkable and, beyond drinkable. It was enjoyable. So, hats off to you. You've done really
Thank you
well
so much,
with
man.
that.
Really appreciate it. Yeah.
My hats off to you. One of the things is maybe if you're hearing about all these this V60 talk on the side of the road, you can hook yourself up with some Time More. Time More is our partner. You can get electric kettles. You can get electric grinders. We're at the World Brewers Cup here. I've seen so many people using them backstage. To win the World Brewers Cup, they might be using that. But also, they've developed a new product that we're going to have on the next podcast. We're doing some videos on Milab Hand Grinder, brand new product. We are helping launch it here at the World of Coffee. How's that for a segue into a sponsor
That's
read there?
awesome, man.
You got to give it to me there. What grade do I
Dude,
get
I gotta
for
give that to you.
yeah, I like that. It works in. But thank you so much for your time. I think
you.
the city of Jakarta has been so welcoming for us. Yourself, Aston, and Daryanto have been such big supporters of myself coming over, both now and in the past. So, I feel so welcome.
Oh, man,
World of Coffee. This has been an absolute success of a show. It's heaving.
Dude.
Like we're in just like a section. There's just people all around us just taking a break.
That's sick.
It's pandemonium in here. There's so many people. It was completely sold out. So I mean, I think you've done well.
No, thank you so much for having me and having the team and always supporting us and everything that we do from the start. So thanks so much, Kirk.
No worries. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Coffee Show with Kirk Pearson. I am Kirk Pearson. Yoshua Tanu. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Put it there, Governor.
Dude.
Done.